Apple's going to force you to upgrade your phone, and we're okay with it.
Welcome to All Future, where we talk all things tech, Apple, humanoid robots, AI, all sorts of stuff throughout the week. If you're enjoying these videos, we really appreciate you watching and would also appreciate you subscribing if you haven't yet. Thank you so much to everyone who has been watching and has subscribed. And today, we're talking about Apple and the iPhone 16 and the way they are going to force people to upgrade phones. So the last cycle didn't really have too much to entice people, and I think a good test is the fact that both Matt and I, who are kind of like yearly cycle people, we didn't upgrade. So we're currently rocking iPhone 14 Pros.
This is literally the first time ever that I didn't upgrade my iPhone.
Yeah.
Like from the beginning, from iPhone 1, right?
Mhm.
So maybe Apple's onto something here.
Yeah, they're gonna force us definitely on the next cycle, but we're also now gonna slightly regret it because we're gonna have I don't know, a month or this line. iOS 18 is gonna release on the release date of the new phone, probably, right?
Usually like a day or so before that or
Okay.
something. But around that same time. Yeah.
So I guess we won't be missing out on what I'm about to explain, which is the fact that the Apple AI features that they detailed are only coming to the iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Max and on. Not even the iPhone 15 base model is going to be getting any of these features.
Yeah. Wow. Right. Well, first off, wow, in that this is something that we have said on this podcast for the last couple months. Is
Yeah.
that the reason Apple is going to, or not one of the reasons maybe, to invest in these AI products and the immense cost to invest in them is to sell phones.
Mhm.
So you're not gonna spend all that money and then be like, oh well, if you get the old phone, it's all good, right? Like you need to sell phones, and this, I think, is actually going to get people to upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
I think, especially people like in our kind of category, maybe, right, who like normally they kind of upgrade, but maybe in the last few cycles hasn't been enough to convince them. Or a lot of people have switched from doing the upgrade every year to upgrade every 2 years kind of cycle. So this is very common. We've talked about this, how cell phone or smartphone sales have kind of plateaued really over the last few years. This is a jump, though. This is a jump. Now, I think we can probably get way into the weeds whether it is a technically necessary jump.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a smart move on Apple's part, because why do all this? Why hand people all this stuff for free? Apple's not charging for any of these things, right? These features. Apple doesn't charge for iOS upgrades.
Yeah.
Right? So if they're going to hand them out free, they need to recoup that cost in some kind of way. Forcing people to buy the newer phone gets that money back right away.
Yeah. And apparently in iOS 18 betas, we're already seeing them utilizing the neural engine more. So the iPhone Pro Max, they've done stats on it. It's already seeing considerable speed improvements, and it's all specifically the neural engine cores. And that's just a software difference that it's actually utilizing it in preparation for when it's actually going to be using those things for all these AI features. And a lot of people, of course, are arguing, does it actually matter, this new chip, or are they just software locking us? According to Craig Federighi, the guy, the hair, according to him at WWDC, he said the A17 Pro neural engine is twice as powerful as the generation before. So essentially, the iPhone 15's A16 Bionic is not fast enough and lacks the, quote, architecture. And essentially, they're saying it could run the features, but it would be too slow to the point where it wouldn't even really be useful. So it could be a mix there. They could be exaggerating things a bit, but it does seem that these chips have very specific pieces of them that is necessary for these AI features.
Right. And I believe him, I guess. Well, I'm sure the truth is maybe in the middle. Like, I think it's close to what you're saying there, in that it's not like these things can't run on the older chips. They just maybe don't run up to the specs that Apple would like them to run.
Yeah.
We've already seen how AI can, just in the review space, get destroyed if it's too slow. The Humane Pin, those first reviews on the Humane Pin, and that delay to get an answer from it was just unacceptable to people.
Yeah.
So I could see Apple going, well, hey, we can make it work on these older things. It's not really as fast. Let's just make the hard cutoff. And then at the same time, the marketing team and those guys are like, awesome. They're like, we have a technical reason to kind of convince people to buy the new phone. So it's kind of win-win for Apple on that side. I don't know if it's even if it's a loss for the consumer side at all necessarily, right? Like you're gonna have to eventually upgrade your devices, right? That's gonna have to happen, and this is what the free market is. Yeah, this is how the system is built. If you don't want to have these things, no one's forcing you to buy it, right? And we've talked about how maybe in 10 years from now or something like that, not having an AI ability in your phone is actually going to start to affect your life, much like not being able to QR code read stuff now would affect your life.
Yeah.
But that's a little ways out. It's very easy for people not to take this upgrade if they decide that they can't afford it or they don't want to do it right. So, yeah, like I get the argument that people are like, "Oh, Apple's forcing an upgrade to get these," but at the same time, I'm like, their job is to make money selling these things.
Yeah.
You know, they're not an altruistic organization here to just give stuff away for free, and by forcing the upgrade, it forces the technology forward sooner. Apple has done this many times, especially on the hardware side, going, all the way back to early Macintosh era stuff, and into the killing the floppy disk, taking out the earphones. That's what I was trying to say. I was like, what do we used to call these things?
Eighth inch jack?
Yeah.
Headphone jack? Headphone jack. There it is.
Yeah, headphone jack. That is what I was trying to say. The technology's so old, I forgot what it was even called.
I mean, took the CD player out.
So yeah, exactly. Right.
Earlier than a lot of people.
So many things that they have done over time that you could argue is to maybe force upgrades, save money. There's cynical reasons to do this, but then I think there's also net positive reasons to do this stuff too. And I think that's where we're at with this.
Yeah. And a lot of those things you look back and don't really miss it. I do the headphone jack right now. I miss at times, but I'm a specific use case where, like, if I'm playing drums, I want to use headphones with a cord, as opposed to wireless and then dealing with like noise cancellation at the drums and stuff. Doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense in that scenario. But right now, if I use my iPad, I have a USB-C dongle, and then if I use my phone, I have a Lightning dongle. Like that's kind of ridiculous. But the rest of the time, and I think the experience most consumers are having for AirPods and such, is you don't miss the headphone jack because you just pull these things out and it's super easy. And yeah, so we see that a lot. I don't think many people are missing a DVD drive in their laptops at this point. I use one every once in a blue moon, and I have an external one that I plug in as opposed to carrying it around. So yeah, this stuff always moves forward, and it's controversial at first, but I think it usually ends up being a net positive.
This is different. Apple's not taking away anything that you have now. They're just saying you can't have this next thing yet if you don't upgrade. So it's even less controversial, at least it should be, is that, hey, everything your phone does now, it can still do, after these new phones come out. And you're also still going to get this free iOS update with a lot of new features. You're just not going to get everything, which is, people have gotten so spoiled with how Apple runs its kind of legacy update program, right? Like so many iPhones support iOS's, generations back, and support a huge amount of that feature set generations back. And people have gotten super used to that. And now Apple's kind of drawn a line in the sand, and there's a hard break moment. And people are like, wait, I'm used to being able to keep my iPhone 3-4 years and it totally get the new update and everything be fine. Especially if you're a person who gets their battery swapped, the iPhone will work really great. Like a couple generations iPhones will still work awesome right now. But they're not going to be able to do that AI stuff.
Yeah. So right now, the iPhone 15 is at $799, 15 Pro $999, 15 Pro Max $1199. And the question then is, will the 16 base model get maybe that'll get like the 17 Bionic chip so that it has the current capability of the 15 Pro, and then the 16 Pro will have like a new one that's even faster and can pull off these tasks even better. Because I think they will want these features to be available across the board, not just like you have to get the Pro phone. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, they got to do it that way, right? Like, and that just follows Apple's upgrade path normally anyway, right? The non-Pro model gets the one step down chip than the Pro model does, and they're already saying that the A17 is the kind of cutoff line to run AI stuff. So it seems crazy that that's not going to be the chip in the baseline 16. So, and then, they do want it across the line, I think. I think people would really be up in arms if they only
You
offered it
had
in
to
a
get the
pro.
Pro
Yeah, like that seems a little
come
much.
September or
Yeah,
whenever.
but
Yeah.
and then something you didn't mention is that there are more than likely going to sell still a 15 model for cheaper
Mhm.
that has an A17 in it, right? Like you're going to be able to get probably well, we'll see. I don't know how they're going to lay it out, right?
Yeah.
But it wouldn't surprise me is if you can get a iPhone 15 Pro even after the 16 Pro comes out at some kind of reduced price or something
Mhm.
like that. Um, and for people who want these features but don't want to pay the $1,000 or the $800 to upgrade to the next phone, you can the previous generations always drop in price just on the secondary market when the new stuff comes out. So you're going to be able to go get a Pro if you really wanted to, the
Yeah.
15 Pro, and save some money on it and get all these AI features and almost all the features probably of iOS are going to be available on that 15 Pro too. I mean, it already does the the spatial photography kind of stuff and all those
Mhm.
types of things. It already has the action button on it. So all these kinds of things that the 16 Pro will have, you can maybe get for a lot cheaper once the 16 Pro is announced and just get a 15.
Yeah, and it does seem like I think we're going to go into detail on it in a lot more in another video, but it
Mm.
seems like a lot of these features also aren't going to be available at launch of that phone.
Mm.
So even if it's like, oh, I should get the 16 Pro instead of the 15 Pro, it might not be as much of a difference because if you wait another year of a cycle, like these features are probably still going to be fairly new and like arriving in a like staggered rollout.
That's a great point, right? Like, and that's what are the Apple Intelligence features that are going to be available day one?
Hmm.
Because if Apple is going to make this, hard line, it's like, oh, you need to have at least this phone to run the AI stuff, and it convinces a lot of people to go and out and buy iPhone 16s on launch day, and they're like, "Ooh, actually, we only have two of those Apple Intelligence features working right now,
Yeah.
or whatever it is, right? So, I imagine from Apple's point of view, it's not actually what is technically the best thing to roll out. I think they're probably looking for what is the flashiest features that we can have ready at launch, and then we'll slowly roll the stuff out going
Mhm.
back. And I know we're probably going to talk about this more in other videos, but I think if you look at why they're doing this staggered launch, I don't think it's a technical limitation problem at all. I just think they don't know how people are going to use these things. They don't know how it's going
Mhm.
to kind of work, and they've seen everyone else get burned.
Yeah.
Everyone else get burned with this, from the Microsoft recall stuff to Gemini telling people to eat rocks, like all this kind of stuff, right? So like they're like, well, if we have like whatever it is, like a feature set of 17 Apple Intelligence features, that's a lot of room for something to go wrong. What if we just kind of ease out 3 features at a time, make sure it's stable, make sure everything's working, there's nothing crazy, 3 more features, 3 more features,
Mhm.
So I think that's probably what the plan is.
Yeah.
But it's still a great marketing ploy to say, hey, all these amazing things are coming, and if you don't go buy that iPhone 16, you're not going to get them.
Yeah. I'm curious. It seems like this could just be the kind of feature they need to add to keep selling the newest phone, even at current pricing. But if they're adding more and more AI capability to the actual processor, do you think we'll see a price increase on iPhones?
There's got to be at some point, right?
Yeah.
It's wild that there has not been a major price increase on the iPhones. Like it's defies logic in many ways because of inflation. The iPhones get cheaper every year,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's yeah, like they've got to bump up that price at some point. I think what we're probably going to see when we see that price bump, it's going to be in that major refresh, which everyone is kind of saying is iPhone 17 now, and it's the major design refresh, a different kind of, as much as the iPhone 10 jump was, something like that. So when you do that, I think then you can make something cost more. It's funny because just how the human brain works, it's hard for people to justify paying more for capabilities and software, but it's easy to justify for design. And you see this across the board. Like when people, how many times are you trying to give advice to people because they want to buy a Mac, and you're like, hey man, $100 more, and you're getting so much more RAM, it's going to be great. And they're like, no way, right?
Yeah.
But then it's super common though to people be like, oh well, $100 more for this cooler design, I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they need that design change to do the price increase,
Yeah.
and it's got to be coming at some point.
Mm-hmm. I think that might actually be kind of where it lines up. Like the iPhone 17 release seems like it's going to be a major refresh, not just an iteration on like the current one. and we've seen the leaks of the iPhone 16. It looks fairly similar. I think it's going to have things like an extra camera button, perhaps like a shutter button, definitely a better chip for AI stuff and all of that stuff. But the 17 probably is going to be the bigger design refresh that
Mhm.
actually means something real and is a distinguisher. And then you'll have the AI features having matured over the course of a full year at Apple. And I think it's like if you're someone who doesn't upgrade all the time and you're waiting for the next one, that's probably going to be the next one that's like, I need this. And these features aren't just in beta form, they've come to fruition, and this phone runs it well and it's new and
Yeah,
different.
yeah, and that's if you're an iPhone 15 user right now, should you be thinking about upgrading just for the AI? Like if you're a baseline 15 user right
Hmm.
now, and probably your battery efficiency is still probably pretty good. You're going to get a lot of the iOS 18 features, nearly all of them, really,
Hmm.
except for the Apple Intelligence stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, like should I just hold off one more year? Maybe so, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're that kind of person who's like, oh, like I don't really need the newest, flashiest thing, yeah, like hold out. I think if you're probably someone like us and you're rocking these dinosaur iPhone 14 Pros, these shameful 14 Pros here, you're gonna need to upgrade. Well, that's a question. Are you gonna upgrade? Like, what's in your mind right now? Are you like, oh, I gotta get the 16 Pro. I'm gonna go for it.
I think I will because I've wanted the spatial video kind of,
Mm,
which actually they're doing the thing where you can now go back and like AI change your photos
mm.
into spatial. But I have the Apple Vision, so I've wanted to try that out and like video at other places because filming with the Apple Vision is kind of absurd. I'm like, I've only done it in my own home. I'm not going to go somewhere and film that to
That is
watch a memory
absurd.
later.
That's absurd.
Like
Yeah.
the videos they showed of like at a
Yeah.
birthday party
Yeah, yeah,
with the
yeah.
Apple
Like
Vision.
hold up, kids, and you
Yeah.
like put on this crazy thing.
It's ridiculous. So I want to experiment with that with the phone. And that's kind of one of the big ones, as well as what other camera features and if they add that shutter button. So I do think I'll upgrade to the 16 Pro. And then I'll be able to play with what other AI features come to it come September.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm on the same boat. Like it's time for me to upgrade.
Hmm.
If nothing else, because yeah, I am starting to get kind of battery degradation. I think my battery runs like 90% or something like that when I
Hmm.
check. So like, and I know that's going to start dropping off faster just because as it gets more cycles. Like so, by the time the new iPhone comes out, it'll probably be in 86, 87% battery
Yeah.
efficiency, and at that point, it's like this is driving me nuts. Like
Hmm.
I gotta upgrade, and I'm also Apple's total. I'm a total mark for this. Like Apple's like, hey, like this type of guy, he's dumb enough to go buy this new phone just so he can ask it his flight times or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Like, and I absolutely am right. I get that weird, like in my lizard brain, kind of envy if I see this new tech and I'm like, why don't I have this? I need to have this. I'm at an evolutionary disadvantage if I don't have this new thing somehow. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm definitely going to upgrade, and I think we are probably not alone with this. And this absolutely, I don't know if you're a big Apple stock guy, but if you look at their stock price has had a pretty good run since WWDC,
Oh, yeah.
and that is because it's 100% because of this. Because all the
Hmm.
analysts are going, "Oh man, they did it! They're going to make people upgrade. This
Yeah.
iPhone is going to sell better than the last previous generations for sure."
Definitely. One of the big things I think we see a lot is people saying this functionality already exists on Android or this already
Mhm.
exists in this other form. But it seems like this is one of the first where they've really demoed it on the full like system level thing with it's their own version and it's using their own chips and all of that stuff. If I'm is that
This
correct?
seems way more integrated than the Google and Microsoft stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly if we're just talking mobile systems, we're really talking Google, right? We're really talking Android. And yes, this seems way more integrated at kind of like talking through things throughout the system. And it's designed to operate on the device with the knowledge that the iPhone has.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever's kind of on your phone, it can kind of know that stuff and not reach out to the cloud as much. This is yes, I would say that as of right now, and the general civilians have not used this thing yet, so it's hard to say. But just looking at the demos, that Apple's implementation of it is much more ingrained, much more effective, and much more useful than what we've seen from Google.
Absolutely. And it will be very interesting to see how much it actually is able to do because we know there's a threshold of where it's not going to be able to do it on device. And then there's a threshold of
Mm.
Apple's own AI compute power when sending it to the cloud. to where they're going to send it to ChatGPT. So I'm really curious to see where that ends up being. Do you think it's going to be like we're using ChatGPT a lot more than we thought we would, or it's going to be less?
I guess it depends on how you use AI stuff. I think if you're a person who asks the AI random questions you encounter in your life. For example, I remember you saying like you asked GPT to help you how to feed your cat portions or something
Yeah.
like that, right? I doubt you have an app on your phone that does cat portions or something like that, right? So like for a question like that, it almost seems inevitable that that has to go out to ChatGPT. But I think there's a lot of other things that maybe you think it would have to go to ChatGPT for that it won't. And and we're going to see how it all plays out, but it really depends on how it integrates into other apps and how the kind of API and things work for it now. So the demo of in the keynote where she's just saying, hey, like talking about the mom from the airport and getting to the restaurant and all this kind of stuff, all that information would be on the apps on the phone. So like an on-device AI could pull all that data pretty effectively or pull it from ways that don't have to go to ChatGPT. So, for example, the maps and the traffic data that's operating through the Apple app. So it's not having to go to GPT for that. Flight scheduling could be through your airline app. That's pretty easy. Restaurant recommendations through like the Yelp app or something, right? So there's all these things that are all the data is already there on device or through a mechanism that it's not reaching to an AI server. And so I think I think we're going to be surprised how many times it doesn't have to go to GPT for these things.
Yeah. I'm really curious to see how it learns as well, because a big part of AI development and learning on that level is collecting a bunch of people's data. And so how is Apple managing to do that and improve this functionality and actually see it through to where it's not very obvious that they're behind? It's maybe they're behind a little bit, but it's secure and we're happy about that. Yeah, it's a very interesting thing to see. And they have convinced us, and they have got a reason for us to upgrade to the iPhone 16. So, as expected, Apple AI features are the things that are making their new phones enticing to people.
You suckered us again, Apple.